So welcome to Life in the Matrix. Here on Earth there's a huge illusion of the senses, a lot of confusion for the mind. The yogic tradition has a famous story of the snake and the rope. On a dimly lit evening, you may be walking in the woods and mistake a rope along the path for being a snake. Imagine that scene. You see this rope, but you imagine it to be a snake, and you jump back, you recoil, thinking it's a snake. Your entire organism and physiology responds to an imagined snake. Then you take out a flashlight and shine the flashlight on the object and see that it's simply a rope. Once you see the truth, everything changes. You're no longer frightened because now you see that it's not a snake. And most importantly, you don't then forget. Once you turn the light off, you don't then forget the next time you see it and jump back again. And in fact, even in the future, when you're walking in the woods and you see an object in your path, you'll remember, oh, I remember that time where I mistook a rope to be a snake. This is very much the way our life on Earth unfolds. A lot of illusions. We see things and they appear to be a certain way to us, but in fact, they're illusions. One is the flat Earth, and I call this the flat Earth mentality. We've seen pictures of the round Earth from space, and so in our mind we know the Earth is round, yet it looks flat to us, and we act as though it's flat. We assume that the Earth is stable and solid, and we have this sort of flat Earth mentality. Our life is framed by the computer screen, the car windshield, and our gaze usually goes about 10 feet above where we're walking at any given time. Very rarely do we look up and actually live the reality of life on a round object hurtling through space. For instance, the Earth seems flat and stable to us. However, the speed of the Earth's rotation is 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. Now, I'm not talking about the Earth somewhere. I'm talking about the very Earth you're standing on right now, or sitting on. It's spinning 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. Additionally, the speed of the Earth's revolution around the Sun is 67,000 miles per hour. Right now, you are on a big round rock that's spinning on its axis, 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, and going around the Sun 67,000 miles an hour. Yet, it all seems very calm, very peaceful, and to be happening with enormous precision, and that's because it is. Because in fact, the universe itself is God. When we refer to God, it's just that mysterious creative force that sustains life all the time. Do you realize that our solar system is 4.5 billion years old? 90% of the lifespan of our solar system, there was no complex life on Earth whatsoever. To put these numbers into perspective, 4.5 billion years, 90% of the lifespan of our solar system, there was no complex life on Earth. We feel we're so important to be alive right now, and that life has always been here in some form or another. It's not the case at all. Here's a timeline of life on Earth. You see, this first block marks half of the age of our solar system, 4.5 billion years to 2.25 billion years. The seas are empty, nothing is alive. Oxygen starts to form after 1.75 billion years. This is almost unfathomable. Eventually, eukaryotes and the origin of the building blocks of life form after 3 billion years. Then the Cambrian explosion occurs 500 million years ago, with plants and simple life forms flourishing. 250 million years later, dinosaurs appear. And this is what I refer to as 90% of the time there was no complex life. Before the Cambrian explosion, there was no complex life on Earth. This is sort of what it looked like if you go back into the mists of time. All the way up here, this is still pre-Cambrian, all the way up, and then the Cambrian explosion happens like about right here, this very last kind of moment. It took all this time. 2 billion years ago, there was nothing. Like I said, this is a timeline of life on Earth. Now, human beings appeared on the scene looking the way we do now only about 100,000 years ago. Now, there's another huge illusion. To put this into context, we need to really make it to scale, and scale it to something that seems reasonable, because 4.5 billion years, 500 million years, 100,000 years, it all sounds like a long time to me, but we have to realize this. There's only been intelligent life on Earth, that's human beings, from the last 100,000 years, only 1/45,000th of the time. What this means is that 100,000 year number that I mentioned, relative to 4.5 billion years, is 1/45,000th of the time. So to put this into perspective, 100,000 years ago, relative to 4.5 billion years, if you were to stack 100 books, each with 450 pages, which is approximately 8 feet of books, the age of humanity would be the last page in the stack. 8 feet of books, 45,000 pages worth of books. That age of humanity, that 100,000 years, would be the last page in the stack. The modern age, let's say, which is the last 5,000 years or so, would be 1/20th of that last page. Perhaps the last sentence. Our modern world now that we're living in, perhaps the D in the phrase, the end. So this is an astounding thing to realize. This moment we're living in is rare, and it took 4.5 billion years. But how did this happen? Why did it take so long? What was going on? Well, what was going on is the moon has been slipping out of its orbit 1.5 inches per year, and has probably been doing this for as long as we can measure. It took 4.5 billion years for the moon to work into the correct vibrational balance with the sun, the correct frequency that could create and sustain beings. Now this frequency, this ratio, is what the number 108 is about. Because the sun diameter is 108 times the distance from the Earth, and now the moon diameter is also 108 times its distance. So what this means, this phenomena is why we have things like eclipses, and the sun and moon look exactly the same size relative to where we are. Have you ever wondered why and how amazing it is that in a solar eclipse, the disk of the moon fits perfectly in the disk of the sun? If you've never pondered this, you should ponder it. Again, it's another one of these illusions. We take this for granted. We take for granted that we're actually on this huge ball that's spinning really fast, going around the sun really fast. Oh yeah, the sun and moon, they just happen to line up right now. Oh yeah, that's just the way it works. It's an absolute miracle. But it didn't happen like that overnight. And only the last 100,000 years or so, since the moon has been in that sacred vibration, did life and humanity and intelligent, refined life forms evolve. Because the moon moves one of its diameters every 100,000 years. If you calculate the diameter of the moon times 1.5 inches of slippage every year, it's about 100,000 years. And it's at this point that we're living in right now that the aggregate distance of the sun and moon are both 108. We're in that sacred vibrational frequency that took 4.5 billion years to get right. And this genius is embedded into every cell of our being. Every cell of your being knows exactly what to do. And it didn't happen overnight. As I say, it took 4.5 billion years of patient integration from singular celled beings to more refined beings. This intelligence is embedded into every cell of our being. You are made of this cosmic intelligence. It's not just an abstraction. It comes from the universe itself. This is why your body is so resilient and so wise. Every cell of your body is like an inner universe with its own intelligence and wisdom. You ever wonder why you can just eat your food and the body knows exactly what to do with it? Your body keeps breathing, your heart keeps beating, everything happens with absolute brilliance and precision, and the ancients knew this. They were connected to this, and we do not. They knew this embedded wisdom, and it permeated their entire culture, and they worshipped it every day. They represented it in their deities. Ever notice Lord Shiva here has his integration with his wife, Shiva and Parvati, the male and the female. The moon is on Shiva's forehead, and the sun is behind him. He's holding mala beads of 108. There's much symbolism here that the Indian deities represent and Indian culture expresses in everything they do. Because what these ancients realized is this cosmic intelligence, this outer universe, actually forms our inner landscape through the chakras and is read through the astrology chart. That's what the astrology chart is. It's been portrayed through every culture. Even Galileo and the ancient Western mystics knew this. Astrologically, it's literally portrayed as the chakras, which means that the chakras are not just some mysterious, mystical energy vortex. They're actually the subtle nature of the planets. The word for the planets in Sanskrit is graha, which means beings that grab us and attach us to our karma. These immense universal beings, 4.5 billion years old, are the agents of cosmic intelligence that created us and created different parts of our being. Here is a literal representation of the chakras and the astrology chart. It's what the Muladhara chakra, ruled by Saturn, Aquarius and Capricorn. Swadhisthana chakra, ruled by Jupiter. Pisces and Sagittarius are the signs. Literally, all the way up to the Ajna chakra, which is ruled by the sun and the moon, which is represented by Shiva and Parvati. You know, in Hatha Yoga, it literally means to unite the sun and the moon in the Ajna chakra. It's not just poetry. It's literally what we are connected to. And here is a picture of the South Indian chart and these Vedic principles. So I just turned that chakra chart on its side, and this is how the planets express and rule astrologically. Because what happens is astrology is the science of how the inner and the outer connect. Through the agency of the chakras, our mind gets an idea, we get an inner karmic impulse, then we act externally through the physical form. But it comes from the spiritual down to the psychological and the emotional, and then gets expressed through the physical. The planets are the agents of all this activity. So imagine for a moment that you are Saturn. First of all, you would be 4.5 billion years old. You would be massive enough to hold 760 Earths. Imagine if you were that big. You would have the lowest density of any other planet in the solar system. So if there was a bathtub large enough to hold you, you would float on top of it. Even though you could hold 760 Earths, you rotate once on your axis every 10.5 hours. This is Saturn, this immense being. You see, the planets are not just big dumb rocks in the sky. They're immense, timeless beings. Been around 4.5 billion years, forming life, impregnating all of creation with their energy, and we are a composite of that genius. Yes, their form is round and large and they're far away, so they don't capture our imagination like people do. But you know, the ancients knew this. That's why they created the gods and the deities, the myths and symbols. They're all planetary. It's to connect our mind and imagination with the cosmos. Ganesha is to represent Jupiter. For instance, Shiva represents the sun. Durga represents the moon, his wife. These images inspire us to connect internally with these creators of life, the planets. The universe itself is God. And all ancient cultures maintain their connection to the cosmos through astrology. And I think it's time for us in this modern world to reawaken to these universal truths. So more information about astrology can be found at my website, freeastrologycd.com. Go there to receive a mega CD of astrology classes for free. I'm on a mission to just get this information in people's hands, so you can go and get that. All you need to do is pay the shipping, and I'll send you out the CD of astrology classes. Either way, whether you do that or not, I wish you all the best.